Excited to introduce Rebekkah. She is a fantastic individual who I've had the opportunity to know for the past 3 years, and I'm really excited to hear her share her story and insights today. Rebekkah McLellan is a woman on a mission to help share voices and stories. She has a BA in psychology with a minor in biology from Rutgers University, a master's degree in public health with an emphasis in global health, and is nearing completion of her doctorate in education in health professions from A.T. Still University. And in addition to coaching soccer and mentoring high school students, Rebekkah is currently serving as an adjunct faculty member in the health promotion department at the University of Lynchburg. After a sports-related traumatic brain injury changed her life at the age of 16, she vowed to live the rest of her life out loud and just outside of her comfort zone. Her goal is to motivate and inspire others to share their voices through courageous conversations, active listening, and getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Her passion for service intersects with one of her lifetime goals of leaving the world a better place than she found it. Join me, please, in welcoming Rebekkah.
Thank you, Tanya. Hello, everyone. Wow, that made me sound really good. So I hope I can live up to my bio. You'll see that I'm pretty animated along the way, and I will be reading off of some notes. One, to keep myself on task because I would just talk forever. And another reason is my head injuries. So I guess a brief description of how I got here, not to my room, but to giving this conversation. I decided that it was a great idea to email Dr. Canada and say hey, I think we should bring a movement to campus. Here's a fantastic TED Talk, powerful people, powerful women. I'll stand with you, I'll stand alone. And so he was like, well, this sounds like you should do this. And I was like, oh, sure, yeah, absolutely. And then realized what it was. So it was one of those blessing curse things that I walked right into because I opened my mouth. So just like the description says, what is this going to be about? It's going to be kind of a monologue, but it's about having hard conversations or the awkward silence, because I can definitely create those. Breaking the ice, speaking for others, but not in a way that is over them. But most importantly, it's about moments. Seeing the moment, seizing that moment, reading what should be going on. So I'm going to preface it with, I do not claim to know all the answers or think I have a solution to any of the world's problems, frankly. Nor, and what I'm going to say is, it's not always going to apply. There's an exception to every rule. But this is about planting a seed. If you plant a seed and then you water it every once in a while, it'll grow. So my name, like Dr. Price said, is Rebekkah McLellan, and I haven't always had the voice that I'm using today and getting to use across campus. I grew up in a single family household, struggling and living below the poverty line. My life was entirely changed when I suffered severe cognitive deficits and became disabled due to a sports-related traumatic brain injury at 16. I woke up and had absolutely no recollection of who I was. I lost 16-ish years of memories, and I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk, and moved forward from there. Since then, at 19, I packed all of my belongings and said, wow, this place kind of sucks, and went to New Jersey and lived there. I was the first in my family to earn a college degree, then the first to get a master's degree by 23. I have been able to solo travel the US. I also have solo traveled parts of Europe, all in my 20s. But granted, it hasn't all been butterflies and rainbows, or however you want to think of good things. I was a victim of sexual assault at 23 while traveling. But then at 24, I got to start teaching college classes, which sounds like you should be in the class. You shouldn't be teaching it. I know, me too. I think that. And then I'll have my doctorate by 26. So these are some of those moments. These are the moments, some of them, that begin to make up my story. Maybe it's similar to yours at some point, but maybe it's not. However, regardless, we should all beg the question, who am I? As for me, I'm everyone, but more importantly, I'm no one. I was once stifled, living in silence, and now I'm one voice yelling for the thousands of silent ones. And for a simple reason, because I can. Just like Lovey Jones said in her TED Talk, in a world that wants us to whisper, I choose to shout. So let me be clear. The hope is that others will follow in suit. But I will stand alone. I will stand with you. And it doesn't matter as long as I'm standing up for what is right and what I believe. So it may seem already, I am transparent. I am also bold and regularly referred to as outlandish, which I get that. I get that a lot. And I just go, oh yeah, I know. My speaking voice is very loud, and I tend to stand not small. I stand firmly as a presence. I expect that I am a presence. I force that in a room. And I'm not going to say every time I speak freely, which is every time I open my mouth, frankly, that I do say intelligible, appropriate, or even positive things. I regularly shock myself by the things that come out of my mouth, but these experiences allow me to learn. Allow me to learn either what not to say next time, or that someone else was thinking the same thing. My students laugh all the time because they'll be talking about something and I'll, put a comment in, and then I'll go, oh my gosh, I should not have told you that, and they're laughing because they're like, oh no, it's just college. But to listen to someone else and to understand a different side and to stand up for those who don't feel that they have a voice is important work that needs to be done, that I have intentions of continuing. And it's because I didn't have a voice and no one stood up for me. When I was growing up, they discounted me to go to college when I was in high school because no one would stand up and say like, hey, she's kind of smart. No, I was poor. That was it. You can't pay for college. Why even tell you that you can go? Well, and then add a brain injury on top of it, and you're definitely not going anywhere. So that's one situation where someone needs a voice. They need help. But there's also moments where it's not safe for someone to use their voice. And it may be a safe place that I can, and I will use my voice to be a better friend, a better educator, just better. I was living in Nevada this Christmas break, and I had a mere kind of stranger, we could say acquaintance, stop the conversation and just look at me and go, do you enjoy being difficult? I'm like, excuse me? Well, I said my first reaction is, this guy wants me to leap across the table. Like, wants me to come full across at him, doesn't he? And me, difficult? I'm confused, I'm insulted. I'm not difficult. But this filter that I don't have isn't being difficult. That's the thing. It's being honest. Brutally, sometimes to a fault, but not difficult. As time has passed since that incident occurred, not a ton, but a little bit, it's given me an opportunity to sit with it. And I've decided for anyone who's uncomfortable with conversations that we're having, and wants to believe and ask me if I'm difficult, well, yes, I am. I am difficult. And I'm going to continue being difficult until the work is done. So me, I'm difficult, honest, pretty loud, a little ridiculous at times, a student, a friend, a teacher, amongst other things. But here's the thing, who are you? Recently, this was also challenged in me. And I'm going to challenge you all in the same way. So first, let me explain. I was recently asked the question that most people, when you think of it, you're like, your first gut knee-jerk reaction is, of course. But you can think, of course, but then step back and reflect, is that the truth? Here's the question. Do you ask for what you want or what you need? To no surprise, I literally scoffed. I was like, what? As if it was silly to be asked that question. And I began to respond with, well, yeah. And then I sat there and I realized I don't. I have this voice that I use for others, and I love using it. But sometimes I don't use it for myself, or at least not effectively. So now I want you to think about it. Do you ask for what you want or what you need? Do you stand up for injustice? Do you stand up for what you believe, or do you fold easily? Do you say something when you see someone being rude to another person? Do you ask questions that you know others are too afraid to? Do you use your voice to help others? What about to help yourself? What about to express discontent or joy? What about expressing your opinion in a safe place? Or do you avoid using your voice because you think someone's going to get upset or mad? Are you limiting your voice and who you are because of someone else's opinion? Each one of us has this loud thing that I do try, my office echoes a little, so I try to keep it down, but we all have it, and it's called a voice. In some spaces, only some voices are heard. Some people whisper because they think someone will think differently of them if they speak up. Did you ever consider that maybe that would be the best result for someone to think differently of you? To see how different you are from them. Consider it. What about the voices that are stifled from fear? You see the fear. Do you do anything about it? What about voices that are silenced because of their status or even the country they live in? Do you stand up for them if you have the opportunity? We need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It should be a place you live. You don't just visit. Create and live in awkward silence. I love an awkward silence, honestly. In my classroom, if I ask a question and then there's just silence, and I'm like, okay, well, you feed them one hint and they're still like, not happening. Nobody's answering. I'm like, you can shout out the wrong answer for all I care. I go, what a true shock this is. And then still no one says anything. And then I lean in, and every time I say, I am sure that I can wait longer than you can. I said, we can stay just like this because I can wait until somebody wants to either give me the wrong or the right answer. So I not only do this in my classroom, I live my life this way. I tend to be not necessarily awkward, but does happen quite a bit. Oh, maybe it is the person I am. But so bold that people go, like, are you, who on earth just talks to people like that? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So we should make people think. You don't have to change the world. You might. You may end up doing that. But what's more important is that someone reflects on what you've said. Learn to respect the opinion of others, whether you agree with it or not. If it's dissenting or you're like, oh my gosh, this person is wrong, still listen. Because what if they have an amazing rationale for how they got to that very, very wrong place? You want to know, I promise. It's always a really great ride. But be brave enough to stand alone for others or stand in solidarity with many. Now that I've rambled about using your voice, I also need to mention that something needs to be clear, that there are times when I use my voice to speak volumes, but I use my silence too. Silence is deafening. Silence can be a powerful tool when you're using it to prove a point. If you're using it as the purpose of being deafening and not because you are a population that is silenced. Those are different things. But create conversation. We need to be talking to each other about everything. If you don't understand, say, I am so sorry. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I go to Tanya's office like 6 times. I'm like, Tanya, I am so sorry. I forgot what we said already, or I have no idea what you're talking about. Did you mean this? And I'm gonna tell you right now, maybe inside she's like, I have 6 meetings back to back, but she never says, she's like, yes, no, gives me what I needed, and then we go on. But that's because I cleared things up. It's the same way with friends, with people who you disagree with. You need to both be heard. Dialogue on things that make people uncomfortable. If it's something that someone is avoiding or you've had a disagreement about at some point in your life, it's probably something you should talk about. So, another one, things that people are ignorant about. Are they not talking about it because they have no idea? Educate them. Talk with them. Ask them what they don't understand. When I moved to New Jersey, I would sit with my friends. I have an Indian friend, a Korean friend. I lived in a Portuguese household. I lived in a Mexican household. And I had no idea their traditions, or that I was supposed to take my shoes off in some instances, and in others, do not take your shoes off. But how did I find out? I asked. I said, guys, I am so sorry, and this is so ignorant of me, but I didn't grow up in a place that had all this culture. Can you let me know what's going on? And they did. What about the things that people are unaware of that are happening in other countries? It's the principle that if it's not right in front of us, we don't think about it. It's not that we don't feel bad about it. We just don't think about it. It's not on our computer screen as the task reminder. We don't get a text every day that says, there's children starving in Africa and Haiti. You know it's happening, but bringing it to the forefront to even create change for them. If you're doing these things, creating a conversation, picking that moment and saying, we're jumping in, we're going to go, I don't know, if you want to go head first, you might need to, you might want to forget it, but feet first, plant yourself, talk to someone, because that's when you're heading in the right direction. I didn't share parts of my story with you for any other reason than just to show you that we all have one. They don't always sound the same. Sometimes they don't ever get us to the same place, but we all have one, and we all have a voice. To use your voice, it takes courage, just a little. It takes vulnerability and transparency. Because if you're transparent, you have nothing to hide. People can ask me literally anything. I'm just going to tell you. And in some situations, that's not the best, but I don't, why lie? So it's going to be worth it though. That's the thing, is I can't think of a single instance when I have stood up for someone else, I have used my voice, I have asked for clarification, I have said, I do not know the word that I am supposed to use here. Can you help me? I have not had a single instance where I was like, well, I should not have done that and should have walked away and went about my business and took my life in a different direction. No, I'm thankful every time. I either learned something or found out a new place to find the information. So use your words. That's all I'm asking. Just use them. Use them for yourself. Use them for others. And if you have a privilege, use it. Use it to help. Use it to stand up for someone else. Because if you have a privilege, other people of privilege are looking at you. And imagine if you're the one helping someone out that doesn't have a voice. Maybe they'll do it too. Use your strengths to better the world and acknowledge your weaknesses. My weaknesses, one used to really be speaking, so actually it might still be, I guess we'll find out after. But most of all, use your voice to serve, to show kindness. Every life has a meaning and purpose. So use your words in your life to create better experiences and opportunities and potentially lifetimes for yourself and others. Whatever that looks like for you, do it. What's stopping you? Oh, do you not have the time? Do you think if someone sees you doing that, they're going to think differently of you? Maybe they should. Maybe you shouldn't be so concerned with what that person is thinking, but that's not my business. So do it. Is it a movement? Join it. You want to change a law? All right. I think that's a big thing, but get some other people. You guys can go to Congress, write your delegate. I think that's the process, something like that. Participate in philanthropy. Find a cause that speaks to your heart and go for it. Is it policy? Great. Find the person who made it. Find out how to change it. Try. Educate. Is it for justice? Do it for injustice. Do it for love. Do it for happiness. Do it for the silenced. Do it for the scared. Do it for yourself. Do it for others. Do it for good. So will you? Will you use your voice? And yours alone? Because your story is the only one that you can tell. You can say, I'm sticking up for this person because you don't know how that person feels. You don't experience their life, but you can use your life to help make their experiences better. No one can take the power from you. Each moment is a new opportunity to start new and be better than before. So go, learn something, say something. You may have to do it scared, but doing it scared is going to be so much better than not doing it at all. I was scared at first. Even I traveled Europe for 15 days on my own. I went to five or six countries, one of the two. And sure, no, I don't speak any of the languages except English. And I did it scared. And my life is totally different now because of it. Do it scared. The experience, use your voice, maybe even use your silence. But your courage could save your life, could save someone else's life, or could even save the world. So this little talk scenario here, it's what I get for opening my big mouth, frankly, you know? Now, I don't know about you, but I have plans to continue to be difficult, at least for another 40, 60, however many years, probably a lifetime. So I just hope that you'll join me. You don't have to be difficult all the time. I'm good at that. Just every once in a while, use your voice. So it has been an absolute privilege to be able to share my thoughts with you today, and thank you all for being here. That's kind of what I have for you. I wanted to end early in case anyone had questions.
Thank you, Rebekkah. I really enjoyed this because I think it speaks a lot to, especially as a woman, sometimes we do tend to minimize our voice. And so I think it was a great admonition to know how to use our voice and how to not be afraid of using our voice. So I want to open the floor up for questions. And if you would like to ask a question, please just unmute your mic and go ahead and speak out.
Rebekkah, this is Robert. Phenomenal. Thank you so much for doing this on behalf of the Office of Equity and Inclusion. I will join your movement. As Bayard Rustin said, we can be angelic troublemakers. And yeah, definitely right. So I didn't have so much a question for you, but just an advice. You need to take this on the road. You need to do a TED Talk and just to let your story be told. So thank you again.
Thank you. I'm glad everyone came, and I hope that you find a space where you can use your voice. Because some people are like, I don't have any instance where I feel like I could interject or do something like that. But it's very literally as simple as in your home, if something's not getting done and you've asked and asked and asked, sit them down and be like, look at me. I need you to do this, or you're sleeping outside. Just make it clear, you know, just really put your foot down. No, but you see, it can be small things. It can be, I need you to speak differently to me. Or it could be a friend saying, I need you to speak up for me. I need you to go with me somewhere.
So Rebekkah, this is Dave again. So as a fellow professor, I just had a specific advice question. So I consider myself the classic absent-minded professor, and I don't like to use that term lightly now after hearing some of the other challenges folks face. But I'll have students ask me for something, and I tell them, email me that request because I will forget it. And they'll be like, well, you're walking into your office, and I'll be like, but my phone could ring, my emails could pop up. So what are some strategies that you do when you're dealing? It doesn't have to be in the classroom, but I like to think about it in terms of students. Just dealing with all the remembering things.
So because I've had so many head injuries, I've had to I think employ is the word I'm looking for, different tactics. So every day I actually come in and I make a to-do list at the beginning of the day, because I know as soon as I walk into my office, I have thought of the 65 things I have intentions of doing today. Get that, intentions. Doesn't always happen. But having that takes all of those things kind of out of my mind. But even in the classroom, before I go in, if I needed to make an announcement, I 100% will not do it unless there's a note that says, make an announcement about, and then tells me. Student-wise, I honestly put a lot of responsibility on them because they're adults. And sure, they need guidance, little reminder, but I make a course calendar, one that goes in the syllabus. It is in 3 different places. And I also like they can email me whenever. But if it's something they come up to me and tell me, I looked at one girl, she goes, I'm going to be out on this day and this day. And I said, that is really great. I am not going to remember that. I said, you're going to need to email me about it now. And then again, when you were out, because I will have forgotten by then. I honestly, my best thing I can do is just be transparent that I'm going to forget. And I have sticky notes all over. And if I'm in the middle of something too, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's that one tiny thing that I wanted to remember, I write it down on my extra sticky note, and then it ends up looking crazy. So then things are just around to remind me. I don't know if that's helpful, but I just try to kind of compartmentalize a little bit to remember.
No, that's great. Thank you.
I think Julia had a question.
Hey, Dave, I'm highly distractible. I have ADHD pretty significantly. And I was working in a local middle school, and as I'd walk through the halls, people would stop me and say, can you do this? Can you do this? And my mantra was, please email me, because then when I was sitting down at my desk, I could focus and make my list and take care of it. And I consider that to be a strategy, whether it's absent-mindedness or from brain injury, or it is one of my strategies that I have to use. Yeah. And it does put the responsibility back on the person who wants something from me. Rebekkah, we haven't met, I don't think. I'm the Accessibility and Disability Resources Director, and I would love to have a chance to chat with you sometime about strategies that you've used to manage the effects of brain injury, because I do work, Meg and I both work with a number of students who have had concussions athletically or otherwise, I've just worked with my first student who is experiencing pretty significant brain fog from having had COVID, and it's 6 months going now. So, any more strategies that I can add to my bag?
Absolutely.
And then, are you ever willing or available to talk with someone who may have experienced a more extensive brain injury?
Yes, I actually, so luckily, I'm upright and I tend to think I'm at least mildly articulate. But what I mean, there's no way that, I could have really flown by the seat of my pants, but there's no way we could have gotten through that talk and you guys gotten anything from it if I hadn't written it all down. In college, I had 3 extensive neck surgeries to alleviate the pain that I was in. I was on a ton of medication, and life was, granted, it's not easy now, but I know exactly how I compensate for it. So much so, people mostly don't notice anymore. But absolutely, I am very passionate about brain injuries and, granted, using your voice, but I'm actually doing my dissertation on concussions. So, and I've had, if we're going to be frank, ones that I went to the doctor for, 8 or 10, total upwards of 20 plus. So yes, I absolutely would, because I am dyslexic, I have ADHD, and this much memory from it. So it's...
Well, I would also add to your list that you're quite inspirational. And I think a lot of times when students are faced with the new reality after brain injury, having someone that has been there and has come through it, and is upbeat and inspirational, chose to speak to us today, I think would be a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I would love to, because I wish I had someone to tell me that, hey, maybe it is going to be all right. I couldn't leave my house for 6 months because I couldn't go outside because it was too bright. I couldn't read. So there were so many things going on, and my life was 100% different than it was. You know, you wake up and you're lying. Actually, I was lying face down on the soccer field, and I just remember my coach is laying on the ground next to me, just saying my name, just hoping that I'm gonna like come back to consciousness. So absolutely, yeah. If you send me an email, no, because I'm gonna forget.
Do you work with our coaches here at all regarding head injuries and concussion protocols? I know that they're all trained and certified in that, but I asked because this was a long time ago, but I had a student. She played sports here, and she was told by her doctor if she suffered one more concussion, she would have long-term repercussions, and she chose to continue to play. And and she was okay, but still, that kind of disconcerting to me. That and she was coming to me to talk about this. So anyway, I don't know whether you share your experiences with our athletic folks as well.
So partially. So with my dissertation, I'm actually going to be testing the athletic staff, the trainers, the coaches, and the student athletes, just to kind of see what they know, because I believe the problem is that they don't know, that they can't recognize it. And that's one of the problems. So I am kind of moving into that direction. I've been in touch with Tom Bowman. Oh my gosh, her name is leaving my mind, but she's the director of athletic training. I've had a couple meetings with John Waters. So we are heading in that direction because I think the protocols got to change. I think Dr. Canada, did you have your hand or little button up?
I did, and I want to dump this quote into the chat box by Malala, and just want your opinion about raising your voice. Because people think that when you're speaking up for others, or when you're speaking up for yourself, that you're shouting and yelling. But as Malala said, she does it not to shout, but to give voice to those that can't be heard, right? And so I think I heard you say early on how, you're willing to sort of be that voice for individuals. And sometimes it's hard to be a voice for yourself and others when you work in a culture of fear. And I think that's a real thing. And so what advice would you give when you find yourself in an organization that has a culture of fear, when you want to, have your voice heard?
In a culture of fear, there's a couple things I'm thinking off of this. Finding an ally, because I promise more people are harder to silence than just one person. But also, I guess a person may need to gauge if they want, like if say it's a workplace and it's just like, oh, I can't say that. I don't feel the same way, frankly. And I think a person needs to gauge what's the worst thing that can happen? Is it that I lose my job? Well, my next question is it something worth losing your job over? Because do you really want to be in a place that's creating such a culture that you can't use your voice when something terrible is going on? Yeah. It's kind of like a risk assessment. Is this worth it? Is it worth it right now? Maybe I come back, get some resources, and move forward. But other than that, I don't have a good answer.
That was good. Thank you.
It's funny. I actually have two quotes. I had that one. My other one was, when the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. That's also Malala. And then Martin Luther King Jr. also said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. So let's see. Any other questions or thoughts? I mean, you guys could tell me I'm wrong. I'm good with that. I tell my students the same thing. I'm like, if you Google it and Google says I'm wrong, cool.
Rebecca, one of the things you said really struck with me was the quote, being proud of being difficult. Because I'm one of those people that I don't like to be difficult. And so I do sometimes modify my opinion to not be difficult. And there's longstanding reasons for that, of which I will not get into. But I guess my question is, how have you come to that position where you are fine with being difficult? Yeah, I'm sure that's an evolution of sorts, but I'm just curious.
I think so it might sound sad at first, but I promise it's not. So when I woke up from my concussion, when I came back to whatever consciousness was there was nobody in my head. Like, I didn't have a favorite color anymore. I didn't have a favorite food anymore. I knew my name, but that was it. So and then I took myself from the place where people knew me as this person that their entire life was ruined. I never went back to high school. I finished, high school through homebound. I had people come up to me and say, "Oh my God, I thought you were dead. The concussion girl." So when I left, I got to be anyone I wanted to be. And having that brought me to exactly who I am. Taking away all of those things, all of those pressures from people being like, "Well, you have to be like this. You have to be polite, and you have to not say this, and you should never speak up to a man, and you should never do this in this situation. Who do you think you are?" I'm like, "Well, my name's Rebekah. Would you like my address? Because you could come to my house too if you want. Here's my phone number, my social security number." I was like, "You could steal my identity too if you want." Like, it's not going to make me stop. And when you just come to that point where I'm not being difficult. You just don't want to listen. You don't want to get to the point because it makes you uncomfortable. I'm fine. And that's the thing, is it's like a lot of conversations are uncomfortable because one person is making it uncomfortable. And so we avoid it because we're like, "Oh my, do I really want to do this today?" "I don't know." And then sometimes we're like, "We want to do this today." So, and granted, there are opportunities where it's like, you just have to come to the decision. You're like, this is going to continue to happen. It's going to keep going. It's like, it's going to be going over and over and over if I don't just do it. And I'm a big, what's the worst thing that can happen? And when you think of, people are like, "Well, I could," and I'm like, "You could what? Have a bad day? Someone get mad at you? Like, what is the worst? Think of the worst thing that can happen, because it's probably not going to happen. Just take yourself as far as you can go in the worst direction, and then just when the person maybe even responds well, it's like, wow, should have tried that before."
Right. Does anybody else have any additional questions? If not, thank you so much, Rebekah, for your presentation today. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you to the Office of Equity and Inclusion for supporting this, and look forward to more opportunities to hear from you all. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you guys.